So just to make sure you're in the right place, this is the orientation for the MEng program. Before I get started, and I forgot to do this before our initial session, but we want to generally give a territorial acknowledgement when we're having any sort of public gathering. And so Waterloo Engineering has put together their own acknowledgement. So Waterloo Engineering acknowledges that we share knowledge on land that has seen human activity for thousands of years. We reside on the traditional territories of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee people. We have deep gratitude and appreciation for the care they've given to this land. Our Waterloo and Cambridge campuses are situated on the Haldeman Tract, the land granted to the Six Nations that includes 6 miles on each side of the Grand River, which you can see here. As engineers and architects, we're committed to meaningful action towards truth and reconciliation, and it's only through this process that we can work toward building a better future for generations to come. Something that I thought was really interesting in the last session was Andrea Milne, our department librarian, pointed out that when you go to the resources for the department, one of the resources is that we generally have resources on Indigenous knowledge for every area of study. So I think that's something that would be really valuable to take a look at and see if there are ways that you can sort of incorporate that knowledge into any of the schoolwork that you're doing. So here's what we'll be talking about today. Welcome, contacts, acronyms. I know that when I started here, acronyms were one of the hardest learning curves. Graduate courses and expectations, which I think is one of the things I get the most questions about. Your degree requirements, specializations, and course selection, how to get involved, other resources, and then some final info and opportunities for questions. Please feel free, if you have any questions throughout, to just give me a hands up though, and I'm happy to answer them. And if it's something I'm going to talk about later, I'll just let you know. So we talked about this in the last session if you were here, but for this term, our department now has about 280 grad students. So that's 89 Master of Applied Science students, 87 Master of Engineering students, and 104 PhD students. The Master of Engineering program is growing. So this is our largest September that we've had yet. So there's lots more people for you to meet and who will be in your classes, which is really nice. And hopefully it'll open up more opportunities in the future for us to offer more classes as well, which is I know everyone's looking forward to. We have 40 faculty members, including 8 prestigious research chairs and 17 full-time staff, including myself and Sarah Landy, who's in the next room. Systems design is housed actually across 8 buildings, but you will likely mostly just be in E5 and E7 for the purposes of your classes. So contacts. Right now, switching. Right now, I am technically the graduate coordinator for our research-based programs, but for the last approximately year, I've been the graduate coordinator for the MEng program. So we are currently hiring for the new mystery person who will be in that role. So in the meantime, I'm your coordinator for both. So please feel free to come to me with questions, even after the transition's done. If you can't track down whoever the new person is, I'll be available right next door in the office that I currently am in. So please don't hesitate to come if you have any questions. Ehab, if you were in the previous section, Ehab Abdulrahman is the associate chair, and he is who you go to if you have questions about course content, potentially how to choose courses, not based off of logistics, but based off of your goals in terms of what you want to learn. He can help with that sort of thing. If there's a course that you want to take and it isn't included in the requirements for the degree, he's who you go to get that approval. But if you're ever not sure, feel free to check in with me, and I can always connect you with him myself, and I can let you know what the best way to go about getting certain information is. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me for any question, even if I'm not the right person to talk to. Sarah Landy is running our research-based section in the next room right now, and she's our administrative officer for the whole department. So she's in the hallway parallel to mine. If you have any questions, especially during this transition period where we're still looking for another person on the team, she's very, she worked in graduate studies before, so she has all of the answers as well. And please don't hesitate to track her down if you need anything. If I'm busy or not around, she's very much available. pro tip, this is more for me than for you, but when you send me an email, if you can include your full name and your student number, it makes it that much easier for me to find your information and be able to give you accurate advice, just because we've had a lot of students, and when I do a search, it shows every student who's ever had that name, and sometimes names that look like it. So anything with your student identification number is much appreciated, and I'll often ask for it if you haven't given it to me. Okay, acronyms. So I'm sure you figured out by now that SYDE is Systems Design Engineering. We also house the Biomedical Engineering program. That's an undergraduate program, but we do have people who do research in that area as well. And so you'll see a lot of that influence in some of our courses, and it's a capacity that we take on. We'll be opening up our first biomedical engineering research-based graduate program, I believe, next fall. We're hoping to do a new intake, so that it'll be present in our graduate programming more next year as well. FOE is Faculty of Engineering, so you'll see that probably a lot. And the other engineering acronym you'll see a lot, and I will use a lot and often don't think to explain to people, is Engineering Graduate Studies Office, EGSO. So if you're ever sending me paperwork and I need to have it signed by the faculty, that's who I'm sending it to, is the EGSO. So if I say like, I've signed this, the department's approved this, it's now with the EGSO, that usually just means that they're giving their final signature and they're approving it before they submit it to the GSPA, who is the next acronym. That's Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs. So anything that needs to be coded for you into Quest. So if you're doing auditing a course, if you're changing your enrollment status, ultimately it will go through the GSPA. They also are who manage, they have a whole section for funding and financial aid. So if you ever have any questions about scholarships or any other your tuition, you may be directed to them for that question, just because they manage the sort of technical aspects of graduate studies. ACGS, Associate Chair Graduate Studies, that's Ehab Abdulrahman, who was at the previous session, and he is generally very quick to respond. So if you ever email him, he usually responds to you. If he doesn't respond to you, it's possible he's just passed the email to me because it's a question for me. And if it's right now where I'm the only person doing grad studies, the wait time can be a little bit longer. Please don't hesitate to flag me if it's something that's semi-urgent. MASC, Master of Applied Science. We have one program, general program, and 2 specializations. PhD is Doctor of Philosophy, which is the same. We have 1 general program and 2 specializations. And then we have the MEng program, where you can take specializations, but your degree will always say Master of Engineering. We'll talk more about specializations later. GSA is the Graduate Student Association, so you'll see them around. They have been ramping up their programming, so we're hoping to continue doing more with them. They are the student advocates, essentially. If you have any like questions or concerns that you're not comfortable talking to us about, or if the concern is about us and you want someone else to talk to about, please don't hesitate to reach out to them, and they can help figure out what the best route is to approach handling those questions. They'll also run student events. So they run seminars. We did Pi Day. Ash kind of explained it, but we had several pies and we had a whole bunch of pizza, and there were like 50 people there. It was really fun. So we'll hope to do more of those sorts of events with them at least once a term. And they did volleyball last term as well. And schedule of classes is SOC. The schedule of classes used to have all of the information you would need for classes. Now, for safety reasons, the university has followed suit and removed the locations and instructor names from the schedule of classes. So what you're looking for there is essentially enrollment, if a class is full or not, as well as the times and dates. But once you're registered in a class, you'll be able to see the instructor information, location, times and dates, all of that information in your own Quest account. So that's where you go to look for that. If you're considering joining a class and you want to reach out to the instructor to ask about course content or anything, please feel free to let me know, and I can tell you who the instructor is and give you their contact information, because it's not so easy to find now. And AIM is Academic Integrity Module. You, at this point, I think should all have been automatically enrolled in that on Learn and in Quest, and it's essentially something that you have to complete pretty easily with completing a module and then a short quiz just to continue your studies at the university. So we'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about degree requirements. Are there any other acronyms people have encountered? Okay, good. These are the main ones that I didn't know what people were talking about at first. So let's talk about courses and the expectations for courses. So courses generally consist, graduate courses generally consist of 36 hours of in-class lecture across a term, and each graduate course is worth 0.5 credits. Most courses will include projects, which might involve course content or design projects. Specifically, you'll all have to take SYDE, which is based around a design project that you'll work on as a group. So that is a very project-based course. Other ones will have projects in different capacities. They might also have some testing and exams. Course evaluation can include a written supervised final exam, which may be weighted at 50% or more of the overall weight. Your instructors should all give you a syllabus to show you the breakdown of each course. It's ultimately up to them how they coordinate what the actual requirements are for grading. And some might not actually have a final exam, some might have another means of evaluation. So for example, with the 660 project-based course, ultimately there's final reports and you do progress reports all the way along as well. So that's your largest means of evaluation is through the actual project itself rather than an examination. This is important to know. A passing grade in engineering is 65%. So that's different from our undergraduate studies where the passing grade is 50%. If you fail a course, you won't be in trouble necessarily, but it also won't count towards your degree requirements. So typically if that happens, you will hear from us at the end of the term. We'll do academic progression and we'll just give you a notification saying that, hey, we saw you didn't pass this course. Here's what you need to do to sort of be in good academic standing for future terms. Typically, it just means you have to take 2 more graduate level courses and pass them in the next term. This largely is not an issue, so you don't have to be too worried about that. And we want students to succeed. So if you're feeling like you're struggling, or you get midway through a course and you realize, oh, this doesn't feel like it's going so well, please feel free to reach out. We can connect you with resources or talk about what your options are. We're not just sort of dropping you in and saying like, good luck, like, hope you don't fail. Like, we want you all to succeed. And generally, students are very successful in the program, so you don't need to be too concerned about that. Students are expected to maintain an average of at least 70% as well, so that's the same deal. If it's the end of the term, we'll go through and look at everyone's grades, and if we see that everyone's average has dropped below 70%, we'll reach out to them with the same notification. Hey, we've noticed that your average has dropped below. This is the requirement across all of engineering, and we might talk about is the next term. Likely we would just ask them to get their average up above the 70%. There are no immediate repercussions ever, mostly just that we want them to make sure that they're trying to be successful in the next term, and if we can help them with that in any way. And so that's when you see placed on academic progression. I think I was supposed to say probation. That's all academic probation is that we've notified you that you've either fallen below 70% or you've failed a course, and trying to ensure that you're successful the next term. And then if you're not successful that term, we might open up the conversation with the associate chair and see what your options are within the faculty and within the department. We're in the course enrollment period now. So now's the time when you can still be adjusting all of your courses in Quest, obviously with some exceptions. You can add and drop courses all the way until September 26th. Obviously, the closer you get to that date, it can be a little harder to jump on board a course because they already have gone through a couple weeks of class. So if that's the case, you might consider talking to the instructor and saying, what would it take for me to get up to the level of what students miss, so you're prepared before you join the course to know that you could feel like you can catch up. But you can add or drop it and there'll be no repercussions to your transcript or anything like that up until September 26th. After September 26th, you can drop your courses, but it'll show up as a WD in Quest. up until, I don't have the date here, but up until a few weeks before the end of term. So again, if you do get midway through a course and you feel like it's really not going well, and you'd rather have the WD, or you're feeling really overwhelmed and you realize that you got in a little over your head by taking like 3 courses and next term you want to take 2, that is an option for you to get a WD on your transcript, and sometimes that feels better than having a failing course on your transcript. And also, when we're doing academic progression, we don't look at WDs either. So if you withdraw from a course, there won't be any like penalty for that within the department. You probably have spoken with me, I imagine most of you, about obtaining a permission number. So some courses require department consent, and you can contact, oops, that is a typo that I put in there, but it's supposed to be SYDE MEng. You've likely emailed me there before, and the person who's there, either me or whoever will be taking on the role after, will be issuing permission numbers. All of our 500 level courses require a permission number to join, so we usually have them set up and ready to go. Right now, I have had a few people reach out to ask for permission numbers at this point, and we've also had people not use theirs, so we're kind of in a transition. So if you've reached out and asked me and I haven't responded yet, that's just because I'm tallying what we have available and trying to do that shuffle. So I'm hoping to have that done by tomorrow, just so you all know. So please feel free to reach out if you encounter that. 700 level courses also would typically require permission numbers, but those will give directly to instructors. So you can contact the instructor yourself and ask them for a permission number, typically because they like to choose who actually takes the course because it's a higher level course. And that way you can discuss if the course is actually a good fit for you, and if they think that it's a good fit, they can issue you a permission number. Whereas the 500 level courses, and MEng students are allowed to take up to 2, and so you require a permission number just because it's not sort of like an automatic thing you can take, but you don't need to talk to the instructor before choosing them. If you want to take a course in a different department, including other engineering departments, the permission numbers are managed by the department, so like who runs the course. So please reach out to them. I've had to feel bad like shooing some people in the other direction if they want to take an ECE course, for example, and every department does it differently. So if there's a course that you try to join that's not a systems design course and you get an error message, I would reach out to whoever the graduate coordinator is for the department that's offering the course, and they'll be able to tell you maybe they have a reserve on it for just their students until a certain date, maybe they have permission numbers available, whatever the case may be. In some cases, a course add-drop form needs to be completed. So we've discussed this generally in the last session as well. If you want to audit a course, that's definitely an option. And you need to complete a course add-drop form. It'll be signed by the instructor as well as the department, and then EGSO and GSPA. And if you want to take a course as extra degree, which means that you would have a numerical grade on your transcript, but it won't count towards your degree requirements because it might be in like another field, or say you want to take a math course and you don't want it to necessarily be substituted for one of your engineering courses, you can take it as extra degree. It doesn't cost extra. It just means that it doesn't count in the total when we're looking at your degree requirements. So this is what that course add-drop form looks like. Students will fill out the first 2 sections. If you also encounter any course that has a time conflict, and you want to audit it or take it as extra degree, we can request it. Generally, it's often not approved though because they don't want students to take courses that are that you'll be missing a chunk of it, but you can request it. Then you'll send it to me, send it to the instructor, have them sign it, and then I'll sign it on behalf of the department typically, and we'll send it through to the EGSO. Hello, did you see tables out there? Let me take it. Just 1 second. Oh, 1 second. Just 1 second. We're gonna have bubble tea later, so. Forms you can find on the GSPA website, and I usually Google to find everything I need, and it's very easy to do. So if you just look up GSPA forms, you should find a list there. But also if you ask me, I can always provide it to you as well. So courses. It's strongly encouraged to complete your course registration within the first 3 weeks. After that, you have to do the add drop form, and it isn't always approved just because sometimes joining a course in the middle is just not going to be successful for the student. So we usually only do that if there's extenuating circumstances. So generally you want to have things figured out within the first 3 weeks. And then I'll talk more about selecting courses shortly. Be sure to check your Quest account to ensure that you're registered for all of your courses in case something happened. As I mentioned, the schedule of classes now only shows enrollment limits, dates, and times. So if you need to find the instructor or the room, that'll be in your Quest account. And also be sure to pay attention to when lectures and exams begin and end, because some classes might have exam times that extend past the end of term. So be sure to check that in your syllabus, because it wouldn't be in your schedule. So try not to make end of before you know if there's an exam and when that might be scheduled. Enrollment status is another thing I get questions about a lot. If you're an international student, you generally won't be changing your enrollment status during your degree, but a lot of students will change their enrollment status for their final term. So essentially going from full-time to part-time. A part-time course load is just 1 course per term. A full-time course load is 2 or 3 courses per term. So some students have completed, for example, 7 courses, and then for the final term, they want to take only 1 course because they want it to be a lighter term. They might be looking for work. And so generally, international students are permitted to go to part-time for their final term. So I would talk obviously with the Student Success Immigration Office about that. That's generally where I direct students, but it's very common. And so you might end up talking to me about that. If you want to take only 1 course, you do have to change to part-time status. And it's in your benefit to do so because you'll pay part-time fees, which is about half of the tuition cost. So if that's something you're ever pursuing, you'll be talking to me about that as well. And similarly, if you're part-time and you decide you want to go full-time, it's the same deal and the same form. If you want to take a leave of absence, so for example, some students, might get an internship opportunity and they end up wanting to take a term off, or they run into health issues or family issues and they need to take a term off to be able to help with that. That's the same form. That's a leave of absence. You can typically take up to 2 inactive terms. And if you want to withdraw from the program for any reason, it's the same form as well. And here's that form. So the first 2 sections you would fill out and then submit to me, and then we'll complete the bottom section and have it all submitted and coded for. So here's the thing I think I get the most questions about: degree requirements, specializations, and course selection. So the Master of Engineering degree requirements, the overall requirement is you need to take 8 engineering courses. 4 of those courses must be from within systems design engineering. You can take, if you want to take all of them from systems design, you're welcome to. But if you only want to take 4, that's the minimum that you have to take. And then at most 4, therefore, can be from other engineering departments. You're welcome to take more than 4 engineering courses, but just at most 4 will apply to your degree requirements. So if you decide to take, wiggle in a couple extra courses throughout your degree, just keep that in mind. You'll still be required to take at least 4 systems design courses. Only 2 of the courses are actually required specific courses: SYDE 600, which hopefully most of you are taking this term, and SYDE 660, which is the workshop course that I talked about. Something important to note, and which we'll talk about a little bit later too, is that SYDE 600 is only offered in the fall term and SYDE 660 is only offered in the spring term. Where am I? So as you can see here, these are all engineering courses. So I get a lot of students who are interested in taking business entrepreneurship, for example, or management sciences. Those are engineering departments. So you can take those courses and they'll still count towards your engineering degree requirements. And then down below, you can see the academic integrity module we discussed. You're automatically enrolled. You need to complete it with at least 75% by November 1st. So just keep that in mind. To schedule yourself like an hour or 2. It's very brief. It's pretty easy to go through, and that way you just know it's done. So you don't have to take a specialization, but a lot of students do choose to. There are 5 possible specializations for the Master of Engineering program: artificial intelligence and machine learning, biomedical systems, human factors, mechatronics and physical systems, vision, image, and signal processing. Specializations consist of 4 graduate courses. One of those includes 660, which has a unique version for each specialization. And there's a set of required courses and then a group of elective courses that you can typically choose one of. Specializations are shown on your transcript, but not on your diploma. So your diploma, when you graduate, will just say Master of Engineering and Systems Design Engineering. But if you want to show an employer or another educational institute that you have a specialized field of study in a specific area, you can show them your transcript, which will say specialization in artificial intelligence and machine learning, for example. And it's something you can just cite yourself on your resume as well. So specialization requirements, SYDE 660. I have a lot of students asking about this. It's the same course for all students. So whether you're taking SYDE 660A or D, or you're just taking the plain SYDE 660, they'll be in the same course and class with all of the other students in the program. Essentially what the specialization that letter signifies is that you've involved a certain type of knowledge in your project. So Jenny Howcroft is generally the instructor for that, and she'll just ensure that students who are inside 660A are incorporating AI or machine learning into their part of the project in some capacity. And that way we can see on your transcript when you've taken that course that you've actually worked on that in a project, and that you've applied that knowledge in a certain way. So sometimes you might end up working with people from other specializations, or if you don't have a specialization, that's totally fine too. And that gives you sort of leeway to work on more options. But that's why we require you to take a certain course code if you do want to take a specialization. Typically, only one 500 level course can apply to your specialization requirements. So you might see that one of the options for the required courses is a 500 level course, and they might also have a 500 level course as one of the elective options. You wouldn't be able to take both of those generally, unless there's, again, some extenuating circumstances that we're not offering like any of the other electives, which occasionally does happen, unfortunately. But typically you won't be permitted to use 2 towards your specialization. You can use 2 towards your degree, but not your specialization. So just keep that in mind when you're choosing, that if you're interested in courses, plan accordingly, that you prioritize the 500 level course that you want to take the most. And then when you're applying to graduate, you might not remember this, but I figured I'd tell you all now anyways. Please email the SYDE MEng email address to notify the person of your specialization, because the system does not track that, because the program you're in is just generally Master of Engineering. So after you apply to graduate, we have to go in, look at your graduation application and code it manually. So some students forget that. We can always add it after the fact if you've forgotten and you're like, wait a minute, why isn't my transcript showing it? But just please keep that in mind, because otherwise I do my best to kind of look out for it when I'm reviewing applications to graduate, but I will sometimes miss it. So course selection, my advice is to plan around SYDE 600 and SYDE 660. Those are the only required courses in the whole degree. So generally, you want to prioritize taking them and work your schedule around them. Additionally, SYDE 600 is a prerequisite for SYDE 660. So if you're thinking, oh, I'll take it in my final term, SYDE 600 is generally meant to be sort of a foundational course. So I highly recommend taking it your first term. We do have students who start in winter and spring, and so some of them end up taking SYDE 660 before 600, but they still have to get permission from the course instructor and have that sort of waived, and with the understanding that they might not have some of the foundational knowledge they would otherwise get. So just advisable to take 600 first if you can. If you want to get a specialization, that's what I would prioritize second. So look at the specialization courses, take them like as soon as they're available. Most specialization courses are only available once per year. We do have a couple exceptions, like for example, this term we have 522, which is a very popular course for the AI specialization, and it is or was full. I'm still looking at that, but we will be offering it next term as well. So there are a couple exceptions, but for the most part, it's kind of a one and done. So if you see one of the courses that's required, I would take it as soon as possible. And additionally, yes, 500 level courses have limited space allotted to graduate students because they are technically undergraduate courses, and some of them are really competitive. So during the first day of course selection, I would email the SYDE MEng email address pretty much as soon as you can. If you feel like staying up late, you're welcome to. I'm not like encouraging that behavior, but some students do choose to do that because spaces are distributed on a first come first served basis starting on the first day of enrollment. And we have to go just from the earliest email in our inbox and work our way up through the list. So sometimes you'll get on a wait list if you end up being after like the first 10 students or whatever the number might be. If you're concerned at all about course planning, because I know that's can be daunting. You're only taking typically 8 to 10 courses and you're trying to fit in the specialization and the requirements. So you don't know what's going to be available when. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I've walked a number of students through how I'd recommend approaching for their specialization. I have the draft of the courses that we're anticipating for winter 2024, so I can give you a bit of an idea of what you might want to take in the next term. We don't always have all of the answers, but I can help walk you through it and potentially help you feel a little less anxious about it. Because I know I've had a lot of students come to me who have been a little nervous about course planning, understandably. So something that we generally want to encourage, we know that students come to the MEng program because they want technical skills. Understandably, and we want to provide those as well. But something that can help set you apart, especially if you're doing the program because you're hoping to enter the industry right after, is building other skills as well. So two engineering options that I recommend that I mentioned before, if you are interested in building out those skills, are the business entrepreneurship courses and management science courses. BE courses talk about management strategy leadership. Management sciences focuses on problem solving and decision making in organizations. And we've had a lot of MEng students interested in those types of courses to sort of round out their degree. So they have a selection of courses that are really technical. Maybe they even have a specialization, and they're able to also take the courses that offer an engineering perspective on some of those soft skills that they can then go into a role and say, I'm able to lead a team. I have this experience as well as this technical experience. For the business entrepreneurship courses, those are run through Conrad Grebel College. And if you complete 3 of them, you also actually get a certificate. So the certificate says it's a graduate certificate in business entrepreneurship, I believe. And so that's something that sometimes people like to include in their resume or portfolio because, again, it shows that you have that additional set of skills. So you might be able to graduate with, if you plan properly, your degree, a specialization in human factors, and also the certificate in business entrepreneurship. So that can make you look like a really well-rounded candidate if you're looking to enter industry after. Other non-degree options include Center for Career Development workshops and events, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. Renison College has English as a second language courses, which can be really valuable if you're feeling like your communication skills are not quite where you'd want them to be for paper writing or even for industry communications, networking. And then there are also undergraduate courses that you can take again as extra to degree. So there's speech communications and public speaking and intercultural communication, which again can all be valuable. You can take them as extra to degree. And if you're taking 2 courses and that's your 3rd course for the term, it doesn't cost you any extra to take that 3rd course. So worth considering. So getting involved, we think that it's really important for students to feel like they have a community base around them. We heard a bit about that from Renata in the introductory section, just that having people who are in the same program as you that you actually can connect with can really benefit you, your mental health. It can make you more successful in the program. And on like more of the practical side, it's also really good for networking in the future and having contacts in industry, because inevitably most of you will go out and enter industry. So we're trying to offer as a department, this year we've started a few new initiatives that didn't exist before because of the pandemic. So we're getting them up and running. We're excited about it. So the first is the graduate student social hour, sometimes referred to as coffee hour. I've seen most of you there, so you've already heard this, but Wednesdays, it should be mostly every Wednesday from 3 to 4. We'll have coffee, tea, snacks, graduate students from across systems design. So that includes our research-based students. So we saw a lot of MEng and research-based students talking yesterday, which was really fun. And then we'll sometimes have special appearances by faculty members, which is nice as well. So Lisa Altman Hall, the chair for the department, will be at our next one. Again, great contact to make, but also a great resource to ask about her time in academia, any industry work that she's potentially done, her time in graduate school, as well as what she's particularly interested in talking about. She's from the United States, so working in the United States is also something you can ask her about. So just a great resource there. So we're hoping to have more of those sort of like guest appearances from people, so that you know that you can come and talk to your fellow grad students, but also other people from within systems design. And I also hope to start bringing some puzzles and games, because I know that sometimes walking into a room full of people and not necessarily knowing anyone could be a little bit daunting. So it's sometimes fun to have. We had last term a puzzle. We used to run these in the staff kitchen, but we outgrew it. But we had a puzzle going, and that was like the highlight of coffee hour. We'd have like a whole group of students crowded around this puzzle. When they finished it, it was like a really big day. So it doesn't sound that exciting, but they were extremely into it. So hopefully we'll have more of that sort of thing. Something else that we just started in the spring term is our grad student workshops. So we're hoping to offer 3 to 4 a term. Typically it's offered on a Thursday at lunchtime, and we have pizza, so everyone loves free food, myself included. The workshops, the goal of these workshops is to offer skills and insights that are kind of extend past your courses, and they're typically sourced from within systems design or the university community. So in the last term, we had probably our most successful was from the Center for Career Development, and they came in and gave an amazing presentation on networking and job search. And I've just, I'm in my 30s, so I've been doing that for a long time, and even I came away with a lot of takeaways. It was super engaging and extremely helpful. So we're bringing them in for another one in the fall, probably a different topic, but that's definitely one you want to look out for. We had our department librarian come in and gave a full talk on leveraging search and citation tools. So if you're writing papers, which pretty much all of you will be in some capacity, including coursework, that was a great tool for that. And then we also had a panel with 3 of our professors, and they talked about navigating careers in industry and academia. So they were all people who had been in academia and who had even worked in industry and then gone back to academia. So they had a lot of valuable insight to share, and we're hoping to do things like that in the future with more of our instructors as well. The first one will be offered in October, but we don't have a date yet. I do also get a lot of questions about teaching assistantships. Priority for teaching assistantships does go to research-based students because they're guaranteed as part of their offer of admission. That's kind of the nature of research-based work. But MEng students are eligible for the positions, and they do often get them. It just depends on what the instructor is looking for in terms of expertise and knowledge. So it varies wildly depending on the class that they're looking to hire a TA for. If you are interested in doing a teaching assistantship in the future, you have to complete the Faculty of Engineering Expectations training. It's a requirement, and there aren't any exceptions. The registration for it's a free training, but it just means they want to make sure that you're fully equipped to support students in the future and to understand the requirements of the job. So registration's open right now. I sent an email about it either earlier this week or last week. It's open until September 20th. I'll send another reminder next week. So if you missed that, keep an eye out for it. And the actual training will run from September 25th to October 6th. It's run virtually, so you don't have to be on campus to take it. There are a couple of sessions that you have to be online at a specific time, but the rest of them you can take at your discretion within that week, so at your convenience. So if you have any questions, generally, right now I am both of these email addresses, but in the future, if you have any questions about applying to be a TA, you want to use the SYDE GSEC email address. And if you have any questions about expectations, you want to use the SYDE MEng email address. And if you use the wrong one, don't worry, we'll send it to each other. So other resources, accessibility services, a substantial accessibility services team at the university that provide academic support for students who have permanent and temporary disabilities. This can range quite extensively. I know that people sometimes have a really narrow idea of what a disability is, but if you're struggling with mental health, if you have physical limitations, learning disabilities, please don't hesitate to reach out to them. The worst thing that will happen is that they say, like, we don't have the capacity to support you, or we require more, uh, whatever the word is. They would require like a doctor to be able to like verify or something along those lines. But it's very worth asking if you feel that you require that extra support, because their goal is to be the support for students and to be that liaison between students and all of their courses to help them get the support they need. If you require any services, register with them as soon as possible, just because it can take a while sometimes to hear back from them. They're extremely over leveraged, and also to ensure that you're getting the support for your class right away instead of waiting until exam time. This is important. Don't make backdoor deals with your course instructor. If you have any concerns about meeting deadlines, about being able to do a certain type of coursework, whatever it might be, including, for example, you're someone who might have a speech impediment, you struggle speaking publicly, and that's something that might be part of like a project that term. Go through accessibility services. That way they have it like formally recognized for you. And if anything ever happens, they'll say like, yes, we verified that this is a need that the student has. And it just provides you more support and more protection. So you can talk to your professor about it, but always go through accessibility services as well. And again, we talked about with Renata, but make sure to take care of yourself. I know there's a lot of stigma around mental health, and especially depending on like your family's beliefs, you might not feel comfortable talking about it. You might feel like everyone else is like absolutely killing it and you're the only person who's struggling. I guarantee I talk to a lot of students and you're not the only one who's struggling if it ever comes to that. So please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always available as a resource. If you ever just need to like talk, or if you're like, I don't really know what resources are available for whatever I'm dealing with, please don't hesitate to come. But here are some other resources available. Counseling services we obviously have. If your questions are specific to being an international student, or you'd like to connect with other international students who might have similar concerns, we have an international student office, as well as multinational student groups, Women's Center, GLOW, which is for LGBTQ students, health services. There's a hotline you have access to, and if you encounter any sexual violence at all whatsoever, the Sexual Violence Prevention and Response Office is also available. The vast majority of these services also offer confidentiality, so if you're ever concerned about that, feel free to ask them. Counseling services, the sexual violence prevention, have a requirement for confidentiality, but even if it's like me, for example, I'm happy to keep your details confidential if that's something you're concerned about, because the most important thing is getting you the support that you need. So something that I want to emphasize as a resource that I've had a lot of students come to me, they ask about what their career options are after the degree. They want to ask about how easy is it to enter industry? What do they need to do? I could not recommend enough the Center for Career Development. I know it might sound hokey, but truly, I've used their resources in my time here as well, and it's extremely valuable, even if you think you have all of the answers. And they're free services for students and employees. They have drop-in appointments. They've scheduled one-on-one appointments, but they do pretty much everything. If you want someone to look at your cover letter, your resume, they'll look at it for you and help you figure out ways that you can make it more impactful. If you have an interview coming up, they'll do a mock interview with you to help you prepare for that. If you don't know how to navigate the work search, both inside Canada and elsewhere, they'll help you with that. Getting your LinkedIn put together properly, how to network. They also have graduate student specific programming. So truly, they are a huge wealth of knowledge, and I cannot recommend connecting with them enough. Definitely try to use that resource while you're here because your tuition goes towards it. So you might as well get the most out of it. And finally, some final administrative stuff. Please, in Quest, ensure that your email information and address and everything is correct in there. If you see an email from SYDE MEng or the other one, SYDE GSEC, please be sure to read it because we're usually communicating something that's often important, or like if we're missing something from you that we need, that'll be coming from those email addresses. So please don't ignore us. Additionally, there is a grad kitchen in E7. So if you're interested in having like a fridge or a microwave, that's available for you to use. It is maintained by grad students, so just please keep it clean. And if you ever need any cleaning supplies because like your pizza blew up in the microwave, let our department assistant know and he can give you some cleaning supplies. Student Success Office, you may have heard of, but they're a great resource for skills on writing, time management, professional development, but also they're a good logistical resource. So if you have questions about your records, about immigration and work permit, they have offices dedicated entirely to that. So definitely utilize them. If you ever need to speak with the immigration office, just keep in mind that I believe they set same day appointments and they often get filled. So if you want to talk to them, it's best to get on sort of like first thing in the morning and try to set an appointment for that day because they fill pretty quickly. And finally, like I mentioned, if you have any program changes you need to make or courses, you can find them on the GSPA website. But again, feel free to send them directly to me for any final processing or if you have any questions. Okay, that's all. Thanks, guys. Any questions? You don't have to applaud me. Yeah. The office room. So we do have, if you're interested in booking one of our like meeting rooms, the workrooms, the department assistant Amen, who popped his head in here, would be able to set you up with a room booking form. So if you ever want to reach out, you can also reach out to me and I can send you the form. And essentially you just fill out the time you want it for, the purpose, and they'll either give you your preference or if it's busy, they'll book you in like a similar room that's nearby. But you're welcome to use them for sure. All right, perfect. It is 11:52. Bubble tea should be here within the next 10 minutes, so feel free to go out, take a break, use the washroom, and then we'll have more of our students and faculty and staff joining us for bubble tea shortly. Thanks, everyone.